we're going to talk about customer experience automation, which sounds really like snazzy. I'm happy to take questions as we go. I am not like a super organized, scripted person. Bit of background about me as to why on earth I'm here talking about this. Gregory's already done a bit of an intro. I'm an MVP. I work within the space of Dynamics 365 customer engagement, as it was called, so kind of the CRM side of stuff. That's where I came in. But a lot of my stuff now becomes like Power Apps, Power Automate. I don't just believe in only Dynamics 365. I think it's a bit boring sometimes. And I also specialize in the marketing module, as it was once called, now called Customer Insights Journeys. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. The kind of way I'm going to talk about it is, here's the cool stuff it does, but also here's the space for citizen developers, low-code developers, people that aren't just users to do really cool stuff with it, because that's why I like it. A little bit about me, I pretend to be anything but code, but then I do stuff that's actually quite technical, but I'm still pretending to be anything but code because I don't want to rebrand. I'm really good at getting injured doing sports, and exercise is really bad for you. And I wake up every day and pretend to be an adult. And here I am doing that thing. Here's a nice little infographic summary of my life. Good. You can find me probably best on LinkedIn, Amey Holden, or ameyholden.com. If you need to get in touch with me, go via either of those things. I'm pretty nice and kind of friendly. I'm happy to help with stuff. Okay. Agenda for today. What on earth is Customer Insights Journeys? Why should you or would you use it? I'm laughing at Ed's comment. But no, because Ed's saying that he gets injured from ice cream. Like, that's not exercise. Don't discourage me from eating ice cream.
No,
anyway,
I'm saying I've never gotten injured doing that.
You haven't? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Life advice from Ed: eat ice cream, it's safe.
Word.
Reconsidering my brand and my life decisions on exercise. Good. And then we're going to talk about key features and developer extensibility. So, little intro to what on earth am I going to talk about. There's lots of apps within Dynamics 365. We're going to talk about customer insights and specifically the journeys side of stuff. So they rebranded the whole marketing module a couple of years ago. They smushed it together with customer insights data and kind of forced them to be together, but actually they're completely separate things that kind of talk to each other. So we will flip between the name of journey, customer insights journeys, and marketing, because saying 3 words for a product name is a bit too much. I'm going to just show you this because this is kind of what it does in theory in terms of the Microsoft sales spiel type thing. Main things that I want to draw your attention to is like, what on earth does it do as a high-level summary? The basic low level is it's marketing automation. So you can use it to send out, for example, newsletters and send out emails at a large volume, but it's more than just emails. So you've got a lot of choice of channels. So you've got email, SMS, push notifications. They're now bringing in an integration with contact center, which is like the customer service side of things, to do AI voice calls, which is quite cool because now we're starting to see it get to talk to other parts of Dynamics 365. It also does, as well as commercial like marketing emails, you can also send transactional emails, which we will talk about a bit later. So rather than it being just about marketing, it can also be a really sweet, scalable system for doing notifications and communications that aren't always about marketing. It's also got, obviously, like with any marketing automation system, you have consent management. So this is kind of, it's got pretty good now. Like, you can manage consent at multiple brands can manage their consent differently within the same system. It's per channel, it's per contact point, so per email address, per mobile number. So the consent management is really freaking complicated, but very sophisticated. Whereas it used to be like a little flag on the contact, which was an absolute disaster for GDPR. And obviously, why would you use marketing automation system over just sending emails out of Outlook? Biggest one is if you're sending emails at volume or any comms at volume, it's domain reputation that you need to protect. So by using a marketing automation platform, it has all this built in, so it doesn't just send the emails via Outlook through the back door. It uses a dedicated marketing automation services that protects your domain. And well, as long as you use it correctly, it protects your domain, gives you deliverability, feedback, insights, etc. So I'm just looking at the comments. So Neil's asked about SMS and CRM. So I will talk about, I can talk towards SMS in terms of how you can use it in customer insights journeys. And it may be that this is something that's useful to you. There's lots of ways you can use SMS within Dynamics 365, and it really depends on where you are. If a customer's already got customer insights journeys, I'd say use it. If they don't have it, there is also other third-party implementations that do just SMS if that's all you need. But you do also need to manage consent. It's all very fun. That's a whole topic on itself, is managing SMS consent, but I won't bore you all with that because consent is really boring. Okay. So I'm just going to jump straight in. So the main way I'm going to go through this is I want to cover, here's all the things that there is and what we can use in the product to give you an idea, but I'm kind of going to walk through it in a kind of big, long scenario so I can highlight the things that we have got. I'm going to try and tell as much of a story as I can with some sidetracks because that's how my brain works. Sorry. So let me grab a screen that shows the right thing because I'm a bit, 1 minute, let me find the right guy. There we go. Have a look at the admin center while we're here. Cool. Okay. Awesome. I'm just going to pull up the chat. So let's have a look at customer insights journeys. It's pretty busy. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's a little bit different to your standard Dynamics 365 apps, so to speak, just because there is quite a lot of stuff that's beyond just like tables and forms. There's a lot more fancy schmancy PCF control type vibe, a lot of extra stuff going on, which is really cool. So we're going to start with, obviously, your typical scenario for using a marketing platform is to send newsletters, for example. It's very boring, but it happens. It's important. And the way that usually happens is you have a list of people, you send them an email. Great. So the way Customer Insights Journeys does list, so to speak, is they like to, Microsoft name things differently, okay? So they call them segments. So it's not just a list, it's a segment. But there's some really cool stuff about this segment that I want to draw your attention to in terms of why it's better than just like a list of people. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of the segment builder. Segments can be lead or contact based. So you can mark it to leads or contacts, which is really nice because it used to be all stuck on contacts if you had any involvement with it in previous versions. I will come back to the questions on the SMS after segments. I'm seeing it and I have not forgotten about you. So this is an example because I can't think of a better name. So the segment builder is really cool. I don't know how familiar a lot of you are with Dynamics, but normally when you want to filter on data, you're limited to what Fetch XML can do. So it's got to be anything that's got to be directly related, and it's all very much inclusive. The really cool thing about the segment builder is how sophisticated you can get with your queries on data. Obviously, you're data people, so obviously you can do way cooler things in different places, writing huge lumps of code. But this is kind of trying to find that hybrid between giving users the power to segment on the data that's A, not super complicated, but also B, super powerful. It still needs a bit of training. You still need to teach people what to do. But it's really nice that you can get to things, for example, that are more than 3 hops away. So let's start with a really simple example. I'm obviously not going to send an email to anyone that doesn't have an email address. So I'm going to say email. Because we're in our Dynamics 365 environment, we may have all our sales data, our customer service data, lots of things going on. So the other thing I might want to do is, for example, I might not want to send a newsletter to anyone who has like a case open, because they may have a current dispute with us and we might just want to leave them to only have direct communications with the person they're dealing with. So you can see here, I can add any table in Dataverse that is somehow related to the contact into the segment builder. So we're just going to wait for that to pull itself in. So what we can do then is say status of a case. We're going to add it to a new group. So it's quite nice that you've got groupings. We define the relationship, and you can see here it lets you go like through all the relationship pathways. So they're really trying to like simplify something that's actually quite complicated, but it's really cool what you can do once you get your head around it. So I could, for example, go from a case through to an account via a lead. It lets you have a look at all the pathways and choose where you want to go. So we're just going to say, for example, the case is active. So obviously I want everyone with an email address, but I want to exclude people that don't have an open case. So this is where the groupings are pretty cool, because I can also do but not. When you affect check XML, this becomes a problem. So this is just quite a simple. So this is everyone with an email address that doesn't have an open case. And we can also tap into what they call behavioral data. So this is all the interaction data signals that are coming from our other marketing activities or just general activities. So if someone opens an email, reads an email, clicks on an email, fills in a form, all this data isn't actually stored in Dataverse. It's stored in somewhere. I can't remember the official name. But the segment builder allows you to interact with that data as well. So I might also want to have a look to say people who have opened an email in the last X months, for example. So you see how I can start to play with interaction data as well as data in Dynamics. So there's so many things you can do with embedding and conditions and stuff like that, which is really, really cool for refining exactly the customers you want to talk to. Also, in terms of this one, I'm just going to fire this a second. Let me grab something. So what you can also look at is, here we go. Where's he gone? Yeah. So also, if you're into having a look at the data query, you can also see kind of behind the scenes / to the side in terms of down here, what's being created as you build the segment out. So you can also actually directly edit in here. It's obviously Microsoft have created up their own language, but it's kind of like a hybrid of kind of data query languages. And you can actually edit in there and it updates the segment as well, which is a really cool little tip. I wouldn't tell too many users because they freak out, but it's a really useful thing to have and kind of play around with if you want to get into actually writing the data queries. Okay. Anything on segments, etc. So I'm going to jump to the questions and do a bit of a flippy floppy and ask Toby to freak anyone out. So we're going to talk about some questions around SMS. Questions about an SMS. So yes, Customer Insights Journeys does do SMS, but it also does a million other things. So if you only want it for SMS, it might be a lot of money and licensing just for the sake of sending SMS. But if you have the volume that's enough and you need that kind of regimented compliance management, ability for users to be able to send SMS in certain ways and special parameters, then it's something worth considering. Be aware, though, that there is also the ability to integrate one-to-one SMS within the sales module of Dynamics 365 as well, which is more about conversational SMS. So me as a salesperson, I can sit in Dynamics, create a message, and it sends an SMS. I can get the customer's conversation back. Whereas marketing, the Customer Insights module is more, for example, surveys, sending SMSs and responding to keywords. You could, and the conversational stuff isn't so much there. It's more about automating it and automatic responses. So it depends what you want to do with it. But yeah, it is an additional license, or you can get just Dynamics 365 Customer Insights Journeys. But of course, it's licensing. Nothing's free. Nothing is free in this world. So hopefully that's answered the SMS side of stuff. And I'll kind of show you as we go into the journeys where we can use them. So segments are done. So we've created a list, we've got a segment. Now we can either do our boring thing, we can send a email to our marketing list, blah, 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 boring. That's all there. That's kind of how that stuff works, but that's like the basics of it. So let's go back to telling a bit of a story here. So another scenario that we want to talk about is forms. So another core functionality of the product is forms. But again, it doesn't have to be for marketing. Let's talk through an example. There's a lot of things I find as someone who is a consultant that helps to implement customer insights journeys. The space that I find people struggle a lot with is getting the most out of the forms. Because to make them look really good, and have some script errors, to make them look really good and to get them to work really well, you've got to have someone to help you out that's got a bit of HTML, a bit of CSS. If you want to take it so further, you need a bit of script knowledge. So this is kind of where, like, as a consultant or someone that's like a bit more technical, this is where you start to add that value. There is obviously a nice out-of-the-box drag and drop, and there is a lot you can do without being a coder. But to make it really extra, like to make it really good, you need someone with that knowledge and expertise. So let's have a look at this, for example. So this is an example of a form that I've set up for quite a few customers. So the scenario here is you've got a form on a website. And for example, let me just open this up as a URL, publish options. So again, with the forms, just to highlight kind of the features that you might get asked about, you can either embed them on a website or you can spin up a standalone page. It completely depends on the scenario. Obviously, this kind of form is more suited to being in a website. And this is the kind of thing that you see on most websites where there's a contact form and you kind of have to explain your reason for contacting. Out of the box with the forms, you can either create a lead or a contact or a lead and contact. What I've done with this one, which is a little bit of like extra development, is that based on the type of query, I've done a small bit of automation in the background to either create a case or a lead. So this is a very typical scenario. You've got, for example, a form which is contacting about an existing order. I wouldn't really want that to create a lead. So this is where we're kind of going to step in. We can get into stuff and kind of interrupt stuff with Power Automate and do really smart stuff behind the scenes that the user doesn't know about. So let's have a little look at this about how it works. So let's imagine Jim is contacting us. Jim. Oh. I hate my use of her, which is actually very true. That's a current issue I'm going through right now. That's really front of mind right now. Obviously, it's marketing form, so we can also capture consent while we're here, but it's also a communication form. So you're not just tying yourself into marketing. So let's kick that in. Obviously, because I've said it's a form, it's an existing order, we don't really want to create a lead. So again, a lot of this is out of the box. So spinning up the form, I'll just quickly show you the UI kind of designer. So again, the designer for the form is very click and drag. I've got all the fields on the right hand side from my lead and contact. I can also add custom fields that just capture data in the form submission. So this is really getting good. Like if you looked at this about 6 months to a year ago, it was really tragic. It's getting really good now. So I can come in, I click on a field, I can change stuff, I can style things, change colors. To take it to the next level, you sometimes have to jump into the CSS and kind of tinker around in there. So this is where you can kind of help customers take things from a kind of okay marketing form to something that looks like it belongs on their website.
Quick question.
And you can also edit. Sure.
For the CSS, I mean, this could be daunting for a lot of people. Do you use Copilot or ChatGPT in helping kind of pretty this up? Have you had success with that?
So I like to use Copilot for things I'm not very good at. And since I'm not a professional web developer, this is the main place that I would use Copilot or ChatGPT, or for writing scripts for the forms. So very often, yes, definitely for this. There is nothing built in because I don't think they want to encourage you to use it. But as like a consultant who kind of understands coding concepts but isn't a web dev, Copilot's freaking awesome for this kind of stuff. So yes, 100% yes. It's probably one of the only things I'll be 100% yes for. It's anything I'm not good at. And then also once you've done it once or twice, you start to learn the little tweaks and you're learning as you go, right? So that's pretty nice. So there's a lot of functionality in the forms itself. You can do things like pre-filling the form. So if someone clicks on a link to a form from an email, it fills in the data we know about them. So some really nice stuff in this that would just be beneficial to many sides of a business beyond just marketing. So that's enough about this thing, just to know it's all there, it's really cool, and you can make it look quite pretty. So
Can I ask a quick question again on forms? Like one of the reasons you could use forms too is being able to, like, for campaigns, right? Like being able to bucket people in certain campaigns, or like stratify, customers, or do like, segmentation of sorts.
yes,
So whether it's a website, it can also be put into an email too, like a link, and right.
definitely.
Okay, cool. Hopefully that gives
Yep.
people context on like many different ways you can use this.
Yep. So you can like grab that link, put it anywhere. The data you capture then gets put into Dynamics. So then that again drives your segmentation. It can drive interactions. So I can do something that we're going to come to later is triggers. So when a form is submitted, do this thing. You can also use form submissions to drive things like lead scoring. So if someone's on your website submitting forms and interacting, they're a hot lead. Like you want to be increasing their value to pull them to the top of the sales list. But yeah,
Right.
very good addition of the context of why forms. But it can be stuff like as boring and functional as a contact form. I have other customers that use it on their website for things like customer referrals. If you want to refer a friend. So it's what's really nice as part of this, you've got this out of the box matching strategies. So you can define how you want to match your audience. And again, this is stuff that, you could build this as an automation, but the nice thing is it gives the user or the marketer the power to decide these things. So you can build matching strategies to say, if you find a lead with the same email address and same phone number, update the lead. If not, create a new one. So you define the matching strategies. You can also define whether it always creates a new lead or updates your existing, and the same for contacts. So a lot of the functionality that you'd normally build as an automation behind Power Automate or code is kind of surfaced up to the user, which gives them the ability to change and depends on certain scenarios. So it's a lot more about surfacing up this ability for someone as a user rather than being stuck behind a developer. So let's have a look in the form submissions. You will see the submissions come through. So each submission comes through, it gets processed, and then it will go make the relevant updates based on the form settings that you've defined. So let's have a look at this one. I'm going to jump out of that. So this is again where the citizen developer comes in. When out of the box, there is no summary text. You just get this kind of key value pair stuff. So one of the things that I typically do is I'll set up a flow that when a form is submitted, I will generate the summary and go and put it on the timeline of the relevant contact. It's a pretty simple automation, but it's all these little things that they seem to miss in the core of the product that are really nice to add and really make a difference for a customer. I've probably got a blog post about that somewhere. I definitely do. It's just got to find it. Sorry. I might have to send a list of references after this. So we can see here, I've got the form submission. It's telling me it's linked to this thing here. Here's the form they submitted. Here's where they came from. You could also, if you've got someone who's good with what's called Google Tag Manager, you can start to do things like grabbing UTMs. Neil, that's an awesome question. I'm coming back to that. Thank you very much. But let's have a look at this. So as you saw, I said that this one was for an issue with an existing server. So what we've actually got here is in the background, created a case rather than a lead. So now, hopefully I've not broken anything. Do.
The Jeopardy
Oh,
music
well.
is playing.
I know, so I'm going to answer
And
Neil's question while my wheel of death spins. Clearly, not even done that. I think Customer Insights is taking a nap, and it's probably becoming a solution import. So Neil asked, why would you use Customer Insights over Sales Hub? That's a good question. So Sales Hub would not give you any ability to send communications at scale. Sales Hub gives you the ability to send an email to a person, maybe a group of people. Everything is going to go via your Outlook or your custom Twilio integration, for example. Where Customer Insights come in is it's much more sophisticated at scale automations. It's got the whole consent management side of things. The segmentation is a tool which isn't part of Sales Hub. So it's much more sophisticated and complex in a nice way. And yeah, basically all these things I've shown you, segment builder, forms, journeys, it doesn't exist in Sales Hub. So if you want any of this stuff, you need it. I don't know what's happened here, so I'm just going to click back here. I'm obviously severely broken something.
Come on, demo gods. Shine light on us.
I know, like
today.
the whole thing has just gone kaput. Kaput.
Come on.
Kaput, kaput. No, wow, this is interesting. I really broke it. That's not even just me building dodgy stuff. That's like the whole thing's gone down. Oh, this isn't what I expected. Okay, well, while that's loading, let me see what else I was going to talk about and see if I can through this one nicely. I think it's loading now as well. Okay, we're back at where we began. We're back at the form submission. If anyone wants any advice, if you're going to spin up an environment, you think it's fun to post it in the US when you don't live there, it's a really bad idea. If anyone needs that advice, this is what we're learning. There we go. Now we're back. So you'll see when you click on that link, it actually just redirects you to the right thing. It's going to open the case because I've said it's going to. Holy mother. Yeah, there we go. Ooh. Welcome to the 1990, where the internet speed is 0.1 megabits per second. So anyway, when this loads, it's going to have my case. So the case has been created. What we're going to see is timeline. We're going to have a summary of the form submission. And we've automatically got that case. We've got the context from the form. We know that Jim hates us so far. Dynamics doesn't want to tell me. I'm done with this. Jesus. So, okay. So we've got our story. We've got a form submission. Again, form submissions are completely unique to marketing. You could have something like a website with Gravity Forms and build an integration. Of course, no one's going to stop you. Then you don't need marketing. But again, it's another integration to build. And it takes away the power from the users to, oh, I just want to add a field to this form. Well, sorry, we need to go and update the integration, grab the data to pass it in, etc. So this is kind of where it's more about removing those walls for development to be able to give the user the ability to quickly spin up a form for a new campaign that's starting next week. You're not stuck behind a change sprint release cycle. And in the time while I waffled, here we see the thing that I was talking about. Form submission summary, nicely in the timeline, data stamped on the case. We've got full contacts. We've got the contact that was either created or updated because of our form submission matching. And we are ready to go and manage that case. The other path would be that someone is a sales inquiry. Instead, we create a lead and we start that sales journey. So that is cool. We got our form, we got our form submission. Let's imagine that from this case, we're going to talk a little bit about what's called triggers and journeys. So this is one of the most exciting things about Customer Insights is this thing called triggers. And it's not like emotional triggers. It's very technically speaking triggers. So what is a trigger? So a trigger happens when a trigger is fired when something happens. So a bunch of out-of-the-box ones. So typical ones would be, for example, an opportunity is created, a lead is created. Even, for example, the interaction data, an email has been opened. Someone has read my email. A contact business phone number has been updated. So there's some that come out of the box. But the cool thing is that you can create your own triggers as well. And the extensibility for it is like, you can use anything to interact with the triggers, but you can also use things like Power Automate. So there's three different types of triggers. First type of trigger is out of the box. So these are the standard ones that come out of, they're called standard triggers. So these are the ones that every customer insights implementation comes with. A lot of it is based on events. Side note on events, the module for customer insights also has a whole event management module. That is a whole freaking topic in itself. But by event management, I mean you can publish events, you can take event registrations, you can do reminders, confirmations. It's like a whole, you can run and host events system. That is a whole separate, you could go into a whole rabbit hole about that. It's really cool if you use it. If you don't, it feels a bit overkill. But if you do any kind of events, so you've got customers that are looking for event management systems, it's really sweet. So you'll see some triggers here that mention events, and that's what that is. Okay. Triggers. So we've got standard ones. There's also ways that you can create your own. There's two types. One is called like a Dataverse trigger, and one is a custom trigger. They're both custom, but one is less than the other. So let's first talk about a Dataverse trigger. And again, this is like giving power to the user to get stuff done. So in Dynamics, we have something called an order, which is when someone purchases something, but this could be any table. But we're going to go through a scenario where someone's purchased something and the order has been delivered, okay? So let's just say the order is complete. So because we've already got the table structure, I can get to any table in Dataverse that's related to a contact. So let's have a look here, and we should be able to find my order table. And then I can choose how it relates to the customer. So I'm going to go find my customer. I choose the pathway, and then I can say whether it's new, when it's updated, or both. And I can also define what columns have been updated. So it's a bit like when you build a Power Automate flow and you define when should it fire and what should make it fire. It's pretty much doing that. But again, no one's having to jump into flow. You're not stuck behind a dev cycle. You're just a user trying to get stuff done. So we're going to do it to say that when the order status is updated, fire the trigger. While it's getting ready, question on the side. Oh no, I think Ed's just answering all the questions. Yeah, I agree with that. Go read the chat. Marsha, you had a question about the AI summary. I don't know if I mentioned AI summary, so I don't understand the context of the question. Oh, and then Greg also asked for clarification. Sorry, I don't know what that means. Feel free to interrupt when you know what it means. Thanks. So now I've got a trigger. You're like, what do I do with this trigger? So a trigger can be used to start a journey. A journey is how we start any kind of automation. So what we're going to do is we're going to say when an order is complete, we're going to send an email to fill in a survey to capture some feedback. So again, this is kind of marketing, but it's also really leaning into this kind of key thing of right message, right time. Customer does something, do something. I'm not like sitting and deciding, oh, next week I'll send a survey out to all our customers. I'm doing it at the right time. The order's been delivered, the order's complete, send them a survey right now, it's fresh in their mind. That kind of vibe. So we're going to create a new journey because I pressed the wrong button. We're going to skip and create from blank. And we're going to say order complete. Then survey. It's trigger based. I should be able to pick my trigger from here. Obviously, when I built the trigger, I just said when to fire. I didn't say what conditions. So here I can also add conditions. So now I'm going to filter on the order, and you see it uses something that's called, called an entity reference. And yes, they use the word entity, not table. And in here, you can see that I can actually get to all the data on the order, not just the specific things that I've called out. So this is really handy. And I can also get to related things. So I can keep jumping up or down the relationship chain until I find the thing that I want. So we're going to say the status reason is complete. Oh. So then what am I going to do? So my order's complete. I want to send them an email and ask them to fill in a survey. Pretty basic, pretty standard, but let's have a look at the email building, because there's some really cool stuff I want to show you here. Here's an email I slightly prepared earlier. So what we can do inside an email is we can use a variation, we can do personalization. So grabbing data that's got the context. So because we've used a trigger, we know the order, we know the name of the order, we know the order number, we know what they bought. All that context comes from the trigger, and we can actually use it inside the email. So then we can start to do some really cool stuff with it. I understand the question now, and I will come back to you. So here's one I slightly prepared earlier. Don't be scared by this. I'm going to explain what on earth I'm doing. But what I want to highlight here is because we fired the trigger, I know about the order, so then I can put context in the email specific to the order. This is where the difference comes from creating a list to using a trigger. If I create a list of contacts, one contact could have many orders, many leads, many sales, many invoices, I don't know. Whereas if you get the trigger, you have the specific context of the specific thing. So this is why it's exciting. I'm excited even if no one else is. Obviously first name, last name, boring, whatever. The cool thing is here, if we look at this personalization tag in here, that's a special magical email disappearing thing. So you can see here, when I'm adding my dynamic text, I can go and choose my trigger. And again, I've got the entity reference, and I'm going to grab the order. Is it number? The order ID. So here's an example of what I can do to pull in. I don't know where my email went. Just let me refresh this. I think they're installing an update right in the middle of this. There we go. I completely lost it. Good, great, cool. Let's try that again. No, it's really not happy today, is it? Hey. Stand by, everybody. I wonder if this will work better. Nope. Sometimes things break. So while I fix this, I'm going to multitask. You're going to be really impressed. The summary of the web form, there was a comment about the AI. Okay, got it. So let me jump back to that AI, because that's kind of a bit of a out-of-the-box dynamics type thing. That's kind of Copilot being weaved into the application. Some of them are useful, and that's probably one of the better ones. But I'll talk about it here because it's relevant and everyone likes Copilot, and this is one of the best things, one of the better things that I've seen Copilot do. So this is actually in the customer service side of stuff. And I believe you're talking about one of these two, right? So it's either the highlights or the case summary. So this is all out of the box Copilot stuff that's included within Dynamics 365 as standard. The timeline thing is on all records that have a timeline. The case summary is obviously specific to the case. And you can see here, obviously, it's just doing really nice stuff. So it's based on the activities and the timeline and the context of the record. So this is nothing to do with the submission. I've created the submission. It is then layering AI over that to summarize. It's pretty nice, this, because if you, for example, you've got all your emails tracked in here, your communications with the customer, you've got tasks, appointments, maybe notes, it summarizes them really nicely. So this is like an out of the box thing now. And again, with the case summary, it's pulling all the information together, and it's pretty good. Obviously, the AI is only as good as the information you are feeding it. But that's just a bit of an idea of some of the Copilot type things which are in Dynamics 365. Hey, I spoke about Copilot. I hope you're happy, Graham. Okay.
Microsoft is happy, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, someone's got to really like it, eh? So we're going to jump bloody email that doesn't want to work. I'm going to go in a slightly different way. I do have here's one I prepared earlier scenario, so don't worry too much, everyone. Yeah, I've completely broken this email. This is the story of my life. So the main thing I wanted to do here is create an email. You can then generate. So this is everyone knows our good friend Customer Voice, which is kind of, it's not very loved at the minute. I still think of it dearly. So what we can do is actually create a link to a survey in customer voice and also pass in the variables inside a URL. This has nothing to do with Dynamics 365 specifically. This is just something really cool that's really useful. But the idea is that we can use the email personalization and passing in the parameters to customer voice to be able to bring them together. So if you look at this email I've kind of generated on the fly, in theory, this would be the personalization coming from that trigger in that email. Then what we can do is actually fire up the survey. And what it's going to do is, because I passed in those parameters, you can then use it to, first of all, personalize the survey. So for example, here is the name that I passed in. It knows my name. But then also in the submission, this then comes back so I can tie the survey response back to the order and back to the customer. Okay. So now what we're going to see is a little bit of, again, customer voice isn't specifically tied to customer insights. You could use this for sales. But the idea is that using that personalization on top of it then allows you to kind of create a fuller picture. So we've got our journey, our order's complete. We sent them a link with a survey to fill in the survey. They fill it in. We know who they are. So when they respond, we can also do things with that information. When the response comes in, save and continue, we'll leave that over here. Obviously, Amy was some good texting last night because she broke everything. Obviously, this survey comes in. When it comes in, without any automation, everything is going to be blank. So this from is going to be blank. Survey would be filled in, but it doesn't out of the box create those relationships. But because we've passed in the parameters, this is where, again, we can jump in with a little bit of automation, which is not in the solution. 1 second, let me jump to the right solution. Here we go. And you will see that the flow, I think, has just done what it's meant to do. Yes, here we go. So what we're going to do from that form submission is, because we have all of those variables that are coming through and that contextual data, we can then create the relationship between the response and the order and the customer. Okay. So because we pass that information out from the email, we can pull it back in. Otherwise, the only other way you have to do it is that you have to create the survey invitation through Power Automate to create the relationship to send it so that when it comes back, it's not anonymous. So lots of ways you can work with customer voice. That's, again, a whole topic, but this is just a way we can make them talk together. So what I've got here is a flow that's going to, when the survey response comes in, what it's done, as you saw here, links it to the order, links it to the customer, which then means we can actually respond based on the responses they've given us. This is where the super custom trigger comes in. So I could fire a trigger for when the survey response is created, but as we saw, when it's created, it's not related to the customer. And because things work a bit differently with the activities, with the activity party thing, don't worry too much about it. But here's a scenario where we could create a custom trigger. So I'm going to quickly show you the user interface for that and how you can use that. And then I realized that we're coming up to time and I need to try and find a way to wrap this up in a kind of succinct manner.
You can definitely go over time. So don't feel rushed.
Okay. Well, you might agree, but everyone else might be falling asleep. So I'll try and find a hybrid between the two.
All righty.
So three types of triggers. So we've done out of the box, we've done the Dataverse one, and this is like super custom trigger, but you can still use it in things like Power Automate. You don't need to write hardcore code. So let's just say this is order survey response. So this one, you see that it becomes a bit more stripped back and you can kind of get a bit more creative. So you need an audience. It's either a contact or a lead. But then we can add attributes. So we can have text attributes, which are great. We can also do something called, so I could put in the response just like the NPS or, for example, specific data. But I can also do what's called an entity reference. So rather than passing back a single piece of data, I can pass back a whole record. And I can say, hey, here's this record, go do whatever you want with it. So let's send back the customer voice survey response. So I'm literally going to say, send back, tell me who the contact is and give me a link to their survey response record so I can do some cool stuff with it. So that goes away and creates trigger. And you just keep clicking through and you say, yeah, I'm ready, go, 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 go. In the background, for anyone that's a bit Dataverse-y, this actually creates a custom action in Dataverse. So behind the scenes, it actually spins up a custom action with the parameters defined. So then you can basically go and call it from wherever you want. So it's kind of building a piece of code that I would not know how to build so that I can, but I know how to use the thing that it builds. Okay. So if we jump over here to the code snippet, you'll see it's already spun up everything we need, and it tells you very vaguely that you need to do something to use it. I look at this and I kind of freak out, but the main things you want to use here is the name of the trigger, and here are your parameters that you need to pass in. Okay. So we can jump back to, let me just grab the name. Actually, I need to copy that. So this is obviously a point in time where you would need to kind of hand over to a developer of sorts, but the marketer or the user in the meantime can create the trigger, they can set up the journey, they can set up the emails. They're just going to wait for someone on the side to work in parallel to make the trigger do the thing. So when I work a lot with customers, the main thing I try and do is to get out of their way, tell them what they can work on, and then say, don't worry, that thing's going to do what it needs to do. So it's quite nice, like giving them the power to decide what's it look like, when does it fire, like what are the rules, and I'll just make the thing fire and they can use it however they want it to. So you'll see here, I've picked up my customer voice response, I've linked it to everything. I can then fire the trigger. Here's one I prepared a little bit earlier because I didn't want to bore everyone to death with me breaking more things. So let's just look here at what I need to pass in. That's completely wrong. It should be. So again, I did another blog post about this specifically about how we can fire these triggers. Just let me check I've got this right. So the main one we saw in the thing was that I've got to pass in the survey reference for the survey response. The other thing to be aware is you can have something called a binding ID. So I could have multiple orders. The binding ID is what makes me unique. So I could be in a journey multiple times, but what's unique about it is the specific thing, which in this case is the response. And then I just need to pass in the survey response ID and also the contact ID, which then allows it to start the journey with the context of the customer that we saw, the contact. So I'm just going to pull this from, where am I pulling this from? From contact regarding order, which is this one. Here's one I prepared earlier. So let me just show you something here. So you see that I created that custom trigger. So if I go to here and look to perform an unbound action, what we will see is, what did I call it? I can't remember. What a survey response. If we search in here, I might have to go to the filtered version because it might freak out. Yeah, okay, no worries. Oh, here we go. Here we go. You see here? So here we've got the order survey response. So in the background, it is creating my custom action that I can call. The great thing about this is that when you, come on, it's okay, you can do it. I believe in you. There we go. So what you saw was that I passed in a contact and a survey response, 2 inputs. What Power Automate tries to do is to flatten it and takes the whole of the reference and flattens it into single fields, and it becomes completely unusable. So again, I have got a blog post about this, about how you basically tell it to stop flattening it and taking your survey reference. But you do get some interesting errors. So the main way we do this is, and I'm getting a bit in the weeds, but let's just get this done. If we pass in the name of the trigger as text, it doesn't explode, and then you can just shove in your outputs. So that's pretty much as easy as it gets, that I can basically define, here are my inputs, and here's the name of the thing I want to fire. Me triggering this from a flow will make this trigger go ping. So just to give some context on like how quite simple that is, I know I did a bit of copy paste, but the ability to make things happen that aren't always in Dataverse, that could be anywhere. I know I started that from a response from customer voice. That could be a response from SurveyMonkey. It could be someone creating a file in spread, like anywhere. You can fire it from anywhere. You just need to come back to Dataverse with the context of the contact and what you want to find. So like the opportunities are endless, like literally endless. So obviously then once I've got my response coming in, I could create another journey and I can do thank you. And I can also, based on what they've told me, I can do different things. So in the email, for example, I could branch based on the NPS response. So here's a very simple explanation. So you'll see now, because we come full circle, I have the response data. Because I got the response data, I also have the NPS score. So then I could say if it's greater than 8, I can do something. Oh, that's a star, not an 8. So you start to see how we can then start doing branching and smarter things. And again, I've given the user the tool and the data they need. They can then go and branch and do all the automations that they need. Triggers are really cool. Like it's almost a bit overwhelming, but once you have the context of a specific company, like there's so many examples like I could give you for this. Like surveys is a bit cliche, but it's a really nice story to tell the whole thing. So just a couple of other examples on that before I kind of round this out. For example, I have a customer who builds houses. Takes a really long time to build a house. So what we've done is we've used signals from their building software tool that tracks the build project. Every time a certain event happens, we're automating communications to send to them, and we're using journeys for that. So because we've got the trigger and we've got the signal, we're able to automate the communications to them at the right time from the right person that's relevant to them on their build journey. So again, that's a very non-marketing scenario. It can be very functional stuff. You need to do this by this point. Here's what to expect in the next few weeks. Have you got your finance ready? So that's been really cool as an example that's not just marketing. Another one is charities. When people donate, they've donated X amount of money, they've previously done, and then we can also do things like, oh, they've previously donated 4 times already. So we can add like an extra banner to the email saying, thanks for your continued support. There's so many things we can do now. We have access to the data. Emails, we can have conditional content as well, which I didn't have time to go through, but that's also super cool, very sophisticated. So just this trigger thing just opens up so many doors to so many things, okay? Other honorable mentions I haven't mentioned, I talked about consent management, we've got events, and also lead scoring. Lead scoring is really cool. I can take messages from everything that's going on, not just the lead, to be able to assign scores to leads and pull them up to the top of the salespeople's lists. I have questions in the chat from, which people do you usually work with in a company? It's interesting. It always starts with marketing because it's usually the tool is first initially bought for marketing. It's like, oh, we need a marketing tool. So I will work a lot with like the frontline users who are doing like marketing, sales, automation, that kind of person. But then I will often find myself ending up in different parts of the business. So I'll find myself supporting operations teams to help them to do their comms. And start to kind of leach this tool into different parts of the business. So it often spreads. I'm often more focused on working with the users, but then also kind of liaising with the IT side of stuff to do the implementations. It might be that I help their internal teams do it, or I will do those things. So it's a lot of enablement and training and showing them how things can be done, and also how I've seen things done badly and how it works best. So it's a less typical, what are your requirements? I will go and build them scenario. It's much more of a, what is your marketing strategy? What are you trying to achieve? This is how we would achieve it with the tool. This stuff is out of the box and this stuff we need to build. And then through that, I'll get customers that have questions like, oh, how do I do this? Can I do this? And sometimes I've never done it before, but because obviously I've got background in automation, Power Platform, and I know the tool, it then becomes this really cool sweet spot where you can go, that's a good question. You have really good business context and a good question. Here's how we can achieve it with the least amount of code possible. That's all right.
Thank you so much, Amey. Really appreciate you. It's amazing.
That's okay.
Until next time.